She all right?
Yeah, she's, you know, I'm back.
Yes.
Yeah, she walking with a cane, a 4-footed cane.
But she's walking.
Really?
Good.
He doesn't recognize a lot until you remind him.
Walking
He
around
really
around
sees.
she's fine up there.
Okay, good, good.
Yeah,
So just
that's
exactly what-
the good one.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's, yeah.
So even when she was completely remote,
We had a quarterback,
I still
a couple years ago, hang out, I went to get
Good,
the
good. We're just
Like Mark, take the picture, it's like, it was like a blurry video we came back with.
Would you go back?
I think you're a photographer, right?
so she had a job that she wouldn't be at right now. Well, actually, it went away. It was a contract job.
She made it. She
And
made
it went,
Okay,
poof.
that's all right.
Not because of what's happening, just
Right,
because of the contract.
right.
And she was,
Yeah.
who, the people who
We
hired
all
her
have
on
a lot of
contract.
I think we have, we all
So
love
that
the
gives her
main
a good
people are
chance
still
to
there.
recover.
Yeah, so when she's not working,
Good. That's fine.
so she's focusing on that. She wants to.
Where is she living?
She does.
She's an advanced rehab,
Okay, good.
outpatient.
I think it's fine.
Much better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the best
I mean,
right
I
there.
guess it's different though.
They did like, flew her in helicopter. When it happened.
Good.
And so they
gave us
that
the
was one
DVD
of the
security
to do inpatient rehab. But,
And
and I wanted her to also because it's, 3 hours a day, every day.
Right,
You know.
yes.
But I think it's better off that we ship her, because now she can be at home.
Home's better.
She's, I'm comfortable leaving after a little bit
Good.
now, so that, because she's steady.
I saw Mal a few weeks ago.
Oh, yeah.
He was at
She's
her state.
progressing a lot faster, I think.
He was, years ago, but I asked him
When
to go
she's
to
young,
treatment.
she's saying,
He wouldn't do
you
it.
know what?
Never got a present here, I am.
Yeah, I mean, her brain will let she had, I mean, in her brain. But as far as like the actual cause.
Yeah, we love her.
She's been getting some liver
Yeah.
issues.
It is called
and they-
practice.
That
We all
things
have
are blood,
Yeah.
so they think that may have something to do with it.
Yeah, no, that's what I was wondering, because she moved to Miami, I think. But I don't understand how she let her go.
It's been a while.
They needed to
I
go
would
her
imagine that.
and move in.
I mean, just the smallest.
Yeah.
Never
So I
said.
don't understand why he wouldn't go with her.
You know, she's been on fire. Like just do this.
I know, that's less important than
It's been
that.
tough to come back.
Really?
It's so important for walking.
Well, yeah.
Like the muscles. If you wanted to.
But now she's
Because
just
now,
more.
these little things make such a big difference.
Yeah,
She's
she's
gonna get that.
Yeah, it was a cop around the traffic when I was trying to get to the fire. Good job.
Oh, was it?
Made it easy, Brent.
Yeah.
He was.
Yeah, you were on the good side of that, so whatever. She's on the same, I don't know, I've seen this emails, right? Yeah, so she's,
You know what? You read more of them than I
she's
do.
been there for a
Good,
long time.
good.
The people physical therapy sometimes.
Good,
Yeah, I like.
They don't realize how bad it is.
Because she says that it's weird, but it hurts
Sorry.
when things start coming, it's like she all of a sudden will feel sore. She's like, my leg is so sore right now.
That might
Which
be.
is a good thing, because it means she can feel it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Good.
Sorry. Yes, it's not something I ever expected to get work at 41 years
I
old.
know. No one does.
No. I thought she was just being dramatic when she called me and said, I can't move my arms and my leg. Oh, come on, you just moved.
I did not the same thing. Rub a little dirt on it.
Yeah, right.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Katie Bosson. I'm the Communications Director for Glynn County. I want to thank you for coming today. We are going to be giving a briefing on the investigation of the incident on St. Simon's Island. It is the Lehrkamp case. You're going to be hearing from Interim Chief O'Neill Jackson. You'll also be hearing from the District Attorney, Keith Higgins, and we also have Stacy Carson, the Special Agent in Charge with the Georgia Bureau of Investigations. We will be taking questions. Chief Jackson and DA Higgins are open to taking questions after their statements are made. We'll ask that we do it in an orderly process. If you'll raise your hand, I'll acknowledge you and you can ask your question.
On today, April 17th, 2023, at approximately 9:50 hours, investigators of the Glynn County Police Department arrested Carlton J. Struther, age 46, and Lauren C. Struther, age 56, both of Glynn County, for the charges of maintaining a disorderly house and contributing to the delinquency or dependency of a minor. The couple, along with their attorney, surrendered themselves to GCPD investigators and were booked into the Glynn County Detention Center. In addition to these arrests, at approximately 1100 hours, Edward Rooker Hobby, a 17-year-old, was booked at the Glynn County Detention Center and charged with battery. This arrest stemmed from a separate investigation that was associated with the Lehrkamps. Investigators have also filed juvenile complaints in juvenile court on 2 juveniles. Abiding by state law, the identity of those juveniles will be withheld, but juvenile 1 was charged with simple battery and criminal trespass, and juvenile 2 was charged with possession and use of drug-related objects. Since the start of this investigation, investigators remained in contact with the Lehrkamp family and have kept a clear and open line of communication. Updates on the progress of this case have been continuously given to the family as well as the victim, and in fact, prior to coming in for this conference, we were in touch with the family. We continue to wish the victim well towards his recovery. GCPD is continuing to investigate this matter, and I'd like to thank the GBI as well as the District Attorney's Office, who have been assisting us along the way from the very beginning. I'd also like to thank the investigators who have worked so tirelessly on this case. This is still an active investigation, so we will be limited in what it is that we can discuss.
The object of all legal investigation is the discovery of the truth. To get to the truth, an investigation must be thorough and leave no stone left unturned. The Glynn County Police Department has conducted such an investigation in this case. The length of time that the investigation has taken has been in large part due to all of the misinformation that has been put out on social media in particular, and the need to address it. With the assistance of the GBI, all witnesses were interviewed, the data from all cell phones were downloaded, all of Trent Lehrkamp records were obtained, search warrants were executed, and it was determined what forensic testing, if any, could be conducted by the Georgia Bureau of Investigation. Although I'm typically not allowed to talk of the details of any pending case, I am allowed to speak to address and correct misinformation that has been widely publicized. Upon review of all the evidence in this case, it has been determined. How do we turn this thing on?
He's right behind you.
You gotta click me. Good to go? Okay. Sorry for the technical difficulty there. Upon review of all the evidence in this case, it has been determined that Trent Lehrkamp is a 19-year-old high school graduate. He is not autistic. He is not developmentally disabled. He is not mentally challenged. On March 17, 2023, he voluntarily went to a residence on St. Simon's Island where there was a group of high school students who were between the ages of 14 and 17. At the residence, he voluntarily drank alcohol. He engaged in an egg fight, and he consented to be washed off with a water hose after the egg fight ended. Specifically, he asked to be allowed to take some electronics out of his pocket before he was washed off, and he voluntarily sat down in the chair that's depicted in the video that's been put out in social media and other media. He was not tortured. In the video of Trenton being washed off that's been published on social media, the statement that was actually made by the juvenile was, "Dude perfect, we are washing off Trenton." Although some people claim otherwise, he did not say, "We are washing off autism." On March 21, 2023, Trent Lehrkamp voluntarily went to the same residence on St. Simon's Island where he had gone on March 17th. Once again, there was a group of high school students present who were between the ages of 14 and 17. At the residence, Trenton voluntarily drank alcohol until he blacked out. No one poured alcohol down his throat or forced him to drink. No one pushed a funnel down his throat. No one urinated on him. Although when he went to the hospital, the nurses noted the smell of urine upon him and he was drenched. Water had been dumped on him, and quite frankly, the physiological response of a human being who has drank alcohol to the point that is a toxin in their system will either sweat profusely, vomit, and urinate. No one urinated on Trent Lehrkamp. No one defecated on Trent Lehrkamp either. The item that's shown in the photograph that was published on social media is a plastic dinosaur toy, of which there are photographs that were taken during this investigation when the residence was searched. No one poured acid down his throat. No one beat him, no one choked him, no one tortured him. After Trenton blacked out from the alcohol that he voluntarily drank, one of the juveniles that was present committed certain acts that have resulted in the complaints that are being filed against him in juvenile court. The subsequent execution of a search warrant at the residence resulted in the discovery of evidence that led to the complaint that is being brought against the other juvenile. After realizing that Trenton needed medical attention, Rooker Hobby drove Trenton to the hospital. Rooker Hobby and the juveniles that accompanied him just didn't drop him off outside the ER. They went inside, got medical personnel to come outside and take him in so that he could get the medical care that he needed. They then left their correct names and telephone numbers before leaving. By taking Trenton to the hospital so he could get medical attention, Rooker Hobby and the juveniles quite probably saved his life. Based on the facts, as they have been determined during this investigation, and as well as the law, the two juveniles for whom complaints have been filed in juvenile court will be prosecuted in the juvenile court of Glynn County. They cannot be tried as adults. Crime of simple battery and the crime of criminal trespass are misdemeanor offenses. For a juvenile to be tried as an adult in Superior Court and possession of drug-related objects is a misdemeanor. For a juvenile to be prosecuted as an adult in Superior Court, Superior Court either has to have a jurisdiction of that matter, which requires one of these crimes: murder, voluntary manslaughter, murder in the second degree, rape, aggravated sodomy, aggravated child molestation, aggravated sexual battery, armed robbery with a firearm, aggravated assault if committed with a firearm upon a public safety officer, or aggravated battery upon a public safety officer. None of those crimes exist in this case. For a case to be transferred to Superior Court from juvenile court, if one is originally brought in juvenile court, it has to be a felony. At a minimum, it has to be a felony for there even to be a petition or a consideration of transfer. There are no felonies in this case. The juveniles for whom charges have been brought or allegations of delinquent acts, I should say, have been brought, must be, under the law, handled in juvenile court. The acts alleged against Rooker Hobby and the Strothers are also misdemeanors. They will be handled by the solicitor for the state court of Glynn County. Battery, contributing to the delinquency of a minor, and disorderly house are all misdemeanor offenses. With that said, we'd be available to answer any questions that you may have.
You mentioned Mr. Rooker Hobby. I missed his age. Was he under 18? And you said it was a separate incident. Could you clarify what you mean by separate incident? What was different there?
His age is 17.
So why is, and to clarify, why is he being named, the other minors are not? He's a minor at 17.
Because under Georgia law, he could be tried as an adult. And what was your second question?
Yeah, so he's being charged with battery for a separate incident. Can you clarify what that is and what the deal with Mr. Hobby is?
So that's a separate related incident that was uncovered or reported to the police department after our initial investigation in regards to Lehrkamp. And as a result, detectives took out charges for
By
it.
separate, you mean on a different date to different
A
event?
different date, different victim.
Different victim?
That's correct.
Not Mr. Lehrkamp?
That is correct.
Can you clarify what this was about at this point?
I will not.
What about Trent's father's version of events? I mean, he kind of said he was abused serially. Can you speak to that? I mean, it sounds like Trent consented to a lot of what happened. Can you speak to the father's version of his abuse serially?
As a parent, I understand he saw his son going to that residence, coming back home in different states of intoxication with different things being done to him. Like the district attorney said, but he continued to go back because he was under the impression those individuals were his friends. And obviously they weren't if they treated him like that.
Additionally, I know you mentioned that under Georgia law, Rooker Hobby can be tried as an adult, so is he being charged as an adult?
Well, actually, under Georgia law, Rooker Hobby is considered an adult in the state of Georgia for criminal prosecution purposes. In Florida, he would be considered a juvenile. In Georgia, he's considered an adult. And that's why we could name his name.
You sound almost outraged at the amount of misinformation there was. Are you angry about this case and the way that it's gone about the community here?
I'm not angry about the case. It's just that it has taken up an inordinate amount of time of both investigative resources as well as prosecution resources in this county at a time when very serious crimes have also been committed, where we've had a 14-year-old juvenile brutally raped and tortured for about 15 hours in the city. There have been other serious crimes that have taken place that need investigating and attention as well. I'm not angry about it. It just has diverted a lot of resources to a matter that, while serious, is not as serious as other cases.
This would be for the chief. I know with all of the social media chatter, there was a list of names of kids who were in their families who were listed. There were a lot of things said. Have you been contacted by any of the families about any threats, things like that being made toward the families or towards the children, the juveniles who were allegedly involved?
So we have not had any separate complaints of any type of threats at this time.
Could you clarify what you just said about a 14-year-old was raped for 15 hours in the heart of Brunswick? We didn't know about that.
So there was a 14-year-old female child that was brutally raped in the city of Brunswick. It's a case that's being investigated by the city police department. Detective Carla Futch is the detective on that case. The individual who raped her was a homeless man, and that individual stayed in the presence of that female for about 15 hours during that incident.
Can you say the date when that happened?
I don't know that off the
Was
top
it
of my head.
recent?
Yes, it would have been during the time this case was being investigated.
And has there been an arrest in that case?
There has.
Can you say the name of the suspect at this point?
Off the top of my head, I don't recall it, but I can find that out for
Can you
you.
please get that to me?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Mr. Higgins, just what do you think contributed to the amount of misinformation in the Lehrkamp case?
Social media. There were a lot of things put on social media that were inaccurate. There were a lot of people with fake profiles, people not even from this area, that were putting out misinformation, hitting hot button topics that then got other people infuriated about the case. That one of which was hot button topic is that Trenton was autistic, which caused a lot of anger, if you will, with regard to that. And if he had been, justifiably so, but he's not. And just a lot of misinformation out there with regard to the specific acts that were done that were very vile in nature. Even if they had been committed, they still would have been simple batteries under the definition of that, but still vile with regard to allegations of defecation and urination, and that he was forced to drink, things of that nature that just simply are not true.
Chief, we've had the community, calling for an arrest in this. We saw the march through St. Simon's Island, the vigil that night. Just what's your word for the community about being able to announce these arrests today?
I'm happy in some regard, but I'm sad in other, because this is an incident that could have been avoided if parents are a little bit more attentive to what's going on in their house, being mindful that teens can get their hands on alcohol, and sometimes folks do use illegal narcotics. So I'm sad that something like this happened. I'm glad for the community's sake that we were able to make an arrest in this case.
And I know obviously it was very problematic, all this misinformation for investigators, and I know you talked about some of the time that it added on to the investigation, but obviously there were some misdemeanors committed, but how harmful are these rumors to maybe these boys' reputations in the sense of defecation and the autism and all these adding factors?
Can you restate your question for me?
Yes, essentially this misinformation, I know it was harmful to investigators throughout the process, but maybe some of the boys who didn't commit crimes getting lumped in with these terrible acts that turned out were just hearsay, such as the defecation and forcing stuff down his throat. How detrimental is it to the people involved and important to prevent this misinformation for that reason?
It's quite damaging to families' reputations, people's reputations. One of my employees' children was alleged to have been involved in this, so it's very, very damaging, and it's heartbreaking that stuff like that happens. But with the instantaneous use of social media and in light seconds, all that misinformation's out there. It's hard to pull it back once it's out there. No matter how often myself or anyone else says that individual wasn't involved, the public believes what they're going to believe, and it hurts a lot.
Chief, one of the fathers of one of the kids who dropped Trent off at the hospital and left his number at the hospital told me that his son wasn't interviewed by investigators until 5 days after Trent was dropped off at the hospital. And it was only after that child was scared to go to school and called 911 that investigators showed up at his house. Can you speak to that as we're talking about misinformation, slowing this case down? If that's one of the witnesses who was there that night, why did it take investigators 5 days?
I don't have any information to that sort, so I can't confirm that. Yes, sir.
What are some of the possible penalties we could see from some of these charges? I know we have misdemeanors and adults and juveniles, just in terms of length of time.
Well, with regard to the charges against the adults, Rooker Hobby and the Struthers, the maximum possible sentence would be 12 months and a $1,000 fine. With regard to the juveniles, that would be up to juvenile court with regard to what may happen in juvenile court, and I won't comment any further upon that.
I just wanted to get a quick pronouncer. I've heard Lehrkamp, and Lehrkamp. Is there one that we can lock in on? Any chance?
Lehrkamp.
Lehrkamp, okay.
I will have the chief's statement and a copy of the district attorney's PowerPoint available for you. And if you need any follow-up, please contact me. I have my card here, and I'll also be happy to send this to you electronically.
Did you get
Thank
spellings
you.
of the two gentlemen who just spoke? Spellings on names?
Yeah. Interim Chief O'Neill Jackson, O-N-E-A-L, Jackson, J-A-C-K-S-O-N. District Attorney Keith Higgins, K-E-I-T-H-H-I-G-G-I-N-S.
District Attorney for Glynn County?
Yes.
And will we be getting mugshots?
You'll have to reach out to the jail for that.
Okay.